Hello, everyone, and welcome to a More Perfect podcast. I am Mike.
I'm Eden.
And today we have, it's been a very interesting week. You've got Trump in Aurora, Colorado with his, anti-immigrant summit. Israel has got a new 100 new people over there in the form of American troops that we'll talk about. And if we still have time at the end, Trump was also at Coachella, and that ended very interestingly. So we'll start and we'll see how far we get. But yeah, it's been an interesting week. Early voting has started in a lot of places. And I remember you said you've voted already.
I dropped my ballot off. I'm so excited.
There you go. We don't get to yet. We've got 4 more days, and then we can early vote. So
wow, it's coming up soon.
All right. So Aurora, Colorado. Trump was recently in there, and you may remember Aurora, if you were paying attention at all, as the site of one of the more recent conspiracy theories, i.e., Venezuelan gangs taking over the city, according to some in MAGA. So as this was a immigration rally, it was all about anti-immigrant everything. And in it, he decided that he would say some really interesting things. I'm going to play it, and then I want to get your take on it. We'll talk about what he said.
I'm announcing today that upon taking office, we will have an Operation Aurora at the federal level to expedite the removals of these savage gangs, and I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right?
So, So before we get your take, I want to point out the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is a act that was created that takes into account basically if your country is an enemy of the United States, it gives the United States carte blanche to do whatever they want with anyone whose country of origin is that enemy country. It's only been used 3 times: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. You might remember what came of of its enactment in World War II with the internment camps, the Japanese American internment camps. So he wants to enact that again for every immigrant. Who knows? I mean,
yeah. Well, I was just watching a compilation of his increasingly violent anti-immigrant rhetoric, and that was unsettling. But yeah, what are your thoughts first? I want to hear.
I mean, my thoughts are it's frightening as hell. If he gets that enacted, all they have to do is name any country an enemy of the state, and they can scoop you up and pretty much do whatever they want with you. No questions asked. You basically lose all rights at that point.
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about, the way that we went out of our way to destabilize a lot of these countries, only to then say and villainize everybody who's seeking refuge from said destabilized country. But I don't know enough about that to speak on it too much. I just think it's, like you said, frightening to see the same, like almost word for word rhetoric coming from a presidential candidate that we saw when one of the biggest genocides happened in all of history. So
Yeah.
I don't know why people can't, like, you know, maybe take these things, put them in context, read some history. But he's turned the word immigrant into a bad word, and he's been able to weaponize that to his own benefit. And you know, he literally has scapegoated an entire community of people, of mostly innocent people, who are now suffering, literally suffering. Example, the Haitian immigrants and bomb threats, directly because of things that Donald Trump has said. And I don't think we should ever downplay how one thing leads to another there. Yelling at one crowd about violent immigrants doing horrible things and just lying to entire crowds of his little minions about innocent people, lying about innocent people, leading to direct harm, or you know, just disturbance, just like leading to a disturbance to that community for no reason other than to try to win an election, and potentially just to cause chaos, I think. But yeah, the parallels are still
I will
very...
also point out that this happened in Aurora, Colorado, where it's already been disproved about 1,000 times over that Venezuelan gangs did not take over the entire city. There was the mayor talked about it, the governor talked about it, it's been talked about ad nauseum. It didn't happen. And the fact that he is going back there and acting as though it's still a problem again it's just a continuation of the same problem that we have with all of this. Like, when it just strikes me, when did truth stop being truth? Like, that's the thing that bugs me. Like, when it comes down to it, it's just they say they don't trust the government. They say they don't trust the media. They pretty much don't trust anyone except for Trump and JD Vance, who have straight up shown again and again throughout their entire life and career to not be truthful and be willing to say whatever they can. And now to see them take that to the next level and potentially harm, forget the undocumented immigrants that could get harmed by this, but American citizens who just happen to have whose parents happen to come from whatever country they decide is going to be an enemy of the United States that they can do this with. Like,
yeah,
you know that American citizens will get caught up in this if it gets enacted, because it happened. I mean, in World War II, the amount of Japanese Americans had no association with Japan. They've been there longer than a lot of the European Americans in this country, and they were just thrown in concentration camps.
Yeah. I think
it's frightening.
Yeah, and I don't want to I don't want to be expecting the worst, so I don't want to say anything too extreme, but can't get much more extreme than Trump.
And right. But that is part of the problem, isn't it? Like, whether we're talking about Project 2025 and all the things in there, whether we're talking about whether we're talking about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the one problem that always comes with all of these, so many people on the right, conservatives, whatever you want to call them, oftentimes when we sit here and we say, it could go this could happen as a result of this, and they go, no, that won't happen. What makes you think that won't happen? What makes anyone think that these people that call members of the LGBTQIA community mutants, these people that are 100% willing to make laws like they have in Texas to make abortion illegal, even in the cases of rape and incest, and then making it illegal for women to leave the state, or that want to make it illegal for women to leave the state in order to get abortions too, even though the whole argument of it being okay that Roe v. Wade was overturned was, well, if you want an abortion and you're in a state that doesn't allow it, then you can go to another state that does allow it. That was literally the arguments that people made to me.
And a disgusting
constantly.
Argument, by the way, an incredibly gross argument to suggest that someone should have to travel
disgusting
to
argument.
receive, healthcare. But yes, no, absolutely. I think that a lot of what I've noticed is from people on the right, from Trump supporters, is that everything that they believe is based on their subjective experience. And there's kind of very little you can do to convince them that that's not as valid as they might think, to not look more objectively at statistics, to not read about what's happening in more general terms or regarding a larger area, larger demographic, like the confirmation bias, the observer bias, and the echo chamber kind of just all points these Trump supporters specifically into this direction of well, I saw a Facebook post about it and I genuinely trust that Facebook post more than I trust any scientist who has ever gone to college. And then once people have passed that point, what do? There's nothing you can do, because you're not going to convince someone that what they're seeing or reading or internalizing as real isn't real. But the crazy part is that you suggest the idea that maybe you are looking to sources that are misleading you purposefully. Let's just say that's potentially what's going on here, is you are purposefully being misled by sources that want you to be malleable or gullible, and
yep.
I saw something, somebody said it's easier to brainwash someone than it is to convince someone they've been brainwashed, and you're comfortable with what you're. I don't know. Did that go off track? Probably.
I mean, it's true though. I mean, it's been shown multiple times that if you say the same thing again and again and again and again and again and again and again, people that low information people that aren't willing to do their own research will just start believing it when you do that. That has been Trump's MO from the beginning, is no matter how egregious, how outrageous, just keep saying it. And over time, people will start believing. And that's where we're at.
The confidence that he has too, when he says such overt lies, gives other people confidence to then spread the same lies. But like, they have been fully deluded into believing them, and because they see someone in such a position of power saying these lies with such confidence, why would they doubt? You shouldn't have to doubt that, you know? Like, to an extent, I have we should be able to trust our leaders, and
Sure.
obviously that's stupid, especially when the right are the people saying don't trust anyone in the government, and then they're saying I'm literally going to take everything that Donald Trump, the notorious liar, says at face value, but then if he says something really outrageous, I'm just going to say that he didn't mean it.
Oh yeah, he was joking. They love saying that they were just joking.
But then when he's joking and it fits their narrative, then it, he wasn't joking. It was whatever. Yeah, that's one of the more infuriating things. They are genuinely going to have to study this in the future. Just like the fact that we had so many resources to point us in the right direction away from this, and so much empirical data, so much evidence from history to point us in the right direction, and we chose to ignore it, and we allowed ourselves to.
Do you think, and obviously neither of us are really know the future, but do you think that?
Just kidding.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will ask the future teller in the group. Do you see law changes coming into effect when it comes to misinformation at some point? Because I mean, it might not happen in a year or two, but do you see a potential of changes when it comes to misinformation to the level of, say, an EU? Because they have laws that have to do with misinformation that we don't have. Do you foresee something like that being a possibility? I know part of me does, or at least wants it.
As someone who comes from the future, they did in fact enact these laws. I think it's inevitable, but I think, like, okay, the way we interpret the Second Amendment is not how I interpret the Second Amendment. You know, it says well-regulated militia. People are like, don't take my AR-15s, and it's like,
right.
Where did it say that? And then the same thing with the First Amendment. You have people saying like TikTok censorship, First Amendment, and then it's like, that's a private entity. Like, what do you mean? And then we also have the people who are like, free speech regardless of free speech without consequences, and that is not a rule. That's not in there. We can have free speech, and you will and should and must suffer the consequences of abusing that right. And a lot of people are abusing that right, and I think that if we have the right people with the ability to legislate these changes, then there's a way to do that properly, and to make sure we are protecting our freedom of speech, but to also ensure that you suffer more consequences, more immediate consequences for instance, lying about entire communities, entire groups of people in a way that directly puts them in harm's way, which there are laws. Like, this is a thing. That's a thing. It's just like, how is it, when and how and who is it being enforced by, and how are we interpreting these things? And I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but I think it's inevitable.
Well, it sounds like we need to probably get a lawyer on here soon.
Probably. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's going to happen. I'm going to agree with future you that
it's already happened.
That I think it needs to happen.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is making sure that one of the most egregious causers of misinformation, and ones that wants to take away, in the end, wants to take away. That's the part that's hilarious to me when this is all said and done. the party that screams free speech the most wants to actually take away free speech. Like, they want to use the government to attack people that say things that he doesn't like.
Deploy the military
that is
to
the
peaceful
epitome
protests.
of what free speech really means.
Yeah. I mean, that is such an obvious analysis of what Donald Trump is using and how he is abusing and manipulating these written rules. It's literally like, Constitution for me, but not for anybody who disagrees with me. And how people can't see that is crazy. And I understand the bias of saying this person, I think, I've been told, agrees with me and all of my ideologies. And I believe Facebook. So this man agrees with all of my ideologies and will fight for them. So if he says that something is wrong, I must also believe that that's something. Did you see at I think it was his most recent Pennsylvania rally, them saying this isn't about Democrats and Republicans, this isn't about like left versus right, this is about good and evil, obviously referring to Democrats as evil. And it's like that. If I was hearing that, like, first of all, that's fear mongering. Second of all, we are also saying it on the left. We're saying
It's
those
true.
same things on the left. It's just like which one has more validity, which group can justify that statement more assertively and with more facts to back it up. And I think the answer is obvious, but
the part that's hilarious to me, 'cause that just brought up a memory. I can't remember which podcaster's show he was on. Trump was on I think it was a comedian's podcast.
Was it Theo
show.
Vaughn?
No, this was after. This was just in the last like week or so. He said that he almost always tells the truth.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then the guy started cracking up.
Yeah.
And I don't think he understood why the guy was cracking up, because that is living in a fantasy world. I'm sorry. Like, if you're going to lie if you're going to lie through your teeth like he does, just own it. Stop pretending you are an honest person, because nothing in your career, even before you decided to run for president, made anyone think you were an honest person. Everyone knew who you were.
Yeah.
But
I heard somebody today literally say they were asking someone, how could you say Trump's a bad guy? Like, and the fact that these people still, like, there's still people out there actually saying that and actually meaning that. I just don't know where are they getting this information? Because I actually don't know, because even the sources that I would assume they're going to are still calling this stuff out to an extent. Like, it's still being brought up to an extent.
yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of things that Trump has done, and like a lot of Trump supporters still literally never heard about his like the sexual abuse allegations. Like, a lot of people still don't understand the severity of his crimes and his actions.
Yeah.
Because it is unbelievable. But then when they do find out, it always becomes like, there's rain coming through my window right now. Sorry.
What's coming through your window?
Rain. I didn't know it was raining.
Oh.
Apparently it's raining. And just, anyways.
Hopefully it's not Milton.
It might be. We're getting some residual Milton over here. But yeah.
All that to say, Alien Enemies Act of 1798, bad.
Yeah.
We are and should be better than that in 2024. And if you are okay with that, that's a problem. Because if you do any research on what it was like to be a Japanese American in this country during World War II, you shouldn't want that for anybody. You shouldn't want that for anybody. And if you don't think that it will get abused by people that are saying the things that the current Trump MAGA GOP are saying about people, we have a congresswoman in Georgia who has blamed fires in Maui on Jewish space lasers and the destruction of millions of people's property and the loss of far too many lives on the Democrats' ability to control the weather.
And she's going to be reelected.
Those are the kind of things that start the downward trend. If you look at World War II, if you look at Nazi Germany, that's the kind of stuff, that's kind of how it started. It was these fantastical things that were just no one in their right mind should have believed, but they were said enough to the point where people started believing it. And then millions of people in Europe and the world realized that they'd done messed up. And we all and the world suffered because of it. So
or they were shamed into
pretending. Stop it before.
Or they were shamed into pretending that they thought it was bad. And now they're all coming back. So
yeah. So another news story came out today. 100 American troops are going to be deployed in Israel with a THAAD missile system. For those of you that don't know what a THAAD missile system is, it is a terminal high altitude area defense battery. It is a defense battery. I do want to point that out. We are not taking an active part in what the IDF is doing. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it. I know I don't agree with it. I'm pretty well can assume I know what you think about it too, Eden.
I still think it's a really important thing to acknowledge that this is not us doing an offensive.
Correct.
I think that's important.
I had an interesting conversation with someone about it too. The reason that it's not that it's good that we have troops on the ground, but it's good that we have control over that battery.
And more oversight.
Correct. It puts our people on the ground, which have a potential of seeing what's going on. It puts us in control of the use of that battery, which, let's be fair, how many of us trust Netanyahu to do anything that's in the best interest of his own people or anyone around him? It has happened before. In 2019, there was that specific system was there with Americans. We've had THAAD systems with about, because 100 servicemen is what it takes to service and run one of those missile defense systems. So it's not new in that area.
100 troops is the
still
proportionate amount of troops to be operating the defense system, is what I saw.
Yep, but its purpose is ballistic missile defense.
Yeah,
that's its purpose. And I guarantee that
I don't want to downplay the other negative connotations of us having boots on the ground over there.
Sure.
But I at some point would like to talk about how we might perceive this to impact the election.
Here's the thing about it. I've actually been watching a lot of things because we're in October, and October is, the time when everyone freaks out about everything. The people that aren't willing to vote for Kamala Harris on the left, on the far left, that will vote for someone like Jill Stein or not vote at all, They weren't going, nothing we did was going to make them vote for Kamala Harris. Literally nothing. Past that, here's the thing, and I feel like a broken record sometimes, and then I want to hear your side of it. I feel like a broken record, but if you want America, if you want your party, if you want any party to have a different perspective on a country in the Middle East, on anything that is going on in the world, you make your voice heard in the primaries when people are running with those thoughts, with those perspectives. We had 4 people in Congress that spoke out against what was going on in Israel, that were calling for an embargo, all of that stuff. 2 of them lost in the primaries. That is 2 less voices for what we want to happen. And I know people will be like, oh, it's AIPAC and they're throwing funds in. It's like, no. The problem is 15% of the voting population votes in the primaries. That's the problem. The problem is people don't get involved. People don't get informed. They don't take part in our democracy from start to finish. What they do is let 15% of the voting population decide what the 2 candidates look like, and then whine and complain when neither of them are what they wanted. Yeah. So, yes, we need to have, I think, personally, we need to have a different, we need to look at our interactions with all of our allies, especially allies that do things that I would consider war crimes, differently. But we're not going to do that unless we get people past the primaries that want to do that as well. And as long as we let super PACs, whether AIPAC or any other super PAC, control our vote by not being involved and just listening to whatever they throw on the TV screens or on YouTube, things aren't going to change the way we want them to.
Yeah. I am trying to look at it as a motivational thing. We still have just 2 choices in this election, and one of those options is more likely to be receptive to pressure from the people, and it is that option is not Trump, obviously. Yep. I think if we
and the RNC is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because the Republican Party was not extremist 10, 15 years ago. But over the last, 15 years, the 15% that went out and voted in the primaries voted for more and more extremist candidates. And what did that do? That gave them the power to decide the policy for the RNC. And now Trump and the extremist section of the Republican Party is in control.
Yeah.
It's the same thing can happen. We tell our party, we tell our politicians what we want this country to look like with our vote. That is how we tell them.
Yeah.
You want change, you make the choice for your party the voice of change, of true change. If we only get one person through that wants change, like when AOC got through, you want to know why AOC is not pushing the same level of change that she was when she first started? Because there aren't enough people in the Democratic Party that also want the kind of change she wants. So if she wants to get anything done, she can't be a single voice at the far end of the party.
Yeah. And that is, it was very smart the way that Republicans rose to the extremists came to acquire so much power the last however many years you want to say, but it was through local
It started with the
elections.
Tea Party.
And it was through these like these opportunities that we have as Americans that we took for granted for too long and overlooked, and the extremists were not overlooking those opportunities. And now we are in a position where we have an extremist running for president calling Kamala Harris a communist, and people believe it. And at the same time, we have somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert who are like so much more extreme that it normalizes Trump. So like, this really is like, I think that there's the way it balances, the way it kind of neutralizes Trump to the general public when we have these crazy extremist people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who will be handed vote. Like, people are going to vote for these crazy people again. And I don't know, kind of
I
a
know
different
it's not going to happen.
but
I want to just, I know it's not going to happen, but deep down, I am still hoping for the former brigadier general that is running against Marjorie Taylor Greene to win. I know the chances are probably slim to none, but I'm going to live in that dream world, because there is almost no, there's like 4 congressmen and then like 2 senators that I want gone more than anything. And I'm just going to live in my dream world. And that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley. I want them gone.
God. Josh Hawley is actually, like, I fear him a lot, actually.
The man doesn't even live in his state. It's so sick.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
He's got a home. He's got to have a house in the state, and it's got to be technically his primary residence, but he spends all of his time in like Virginia or something, wherever he's got his other house.
He's the one who said that he's like a proud Christian nationalist, right? That was Josh Hawley.
Oh yeah,
I think.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think we are. Hopefully, I don't want to say this publicly, but I think we are probably underestimating how many people are going to come out to vote against Donald Trump this year. Hopefully. I am thinking about the fact that he, the incumbent usually has a higher chance of winning an election, and Trump was the incumbent and he lost the election, and that was and it's only gotten more intense since then. The outing him for all of his negative, whatever.
There are some positives that definitely give me hope, even though I won't let myself get hopeful. I've said it before that 10 points ahead is or 6 points ahead is 3 points behind. That's kind of how my mentality is. But there are some things that are a little abnormal that I wasn't expecting to see. Again, this is all assuming that you can trust polls as much as far as you can throw them, which you can't. But there's still a potential of hope with it, i.e. Nebraska's 2nd district, where she's leading by like something insane, by like 15 points or 20 points or something insane, like a number no one was expecting.
Yeah.
And then in Pennsylvania, in the 10th district of Pennsylvania, a district that Trump won by 4 points, was polled for Kamala Harris winning by 5 points.
Wow. Yeah.
So
listen, I don't even want to give polls the time
I'm
of
just
day,
saying,
but that's awesome.
If, again, polls are a snapshot They could have asked the weird people at the weird time. But if it's one of those things where it just gives you a little bit of hope.
Yeah. And I think
it's not going to change. It's not going to change my worry. It's not going to change me pushing people to vote early. It's not going to,
and it shouldn't, but it does act as a source of hope, because, when we were all seeing Biden like being crushed in all the polls, the entire vibe was so sad and so hopeless. And like, I was out registering people to vote before and after Kamala joined the race, and there was a noticeable shift. And I think that motivation has been being pushed along pretty well. Persisting is what I meant, pretty well. But I feel like for instance, now that people can say we have boots on the ground in Israel under Biden-Harris administration, like they're going to take that and run with it. And that sucks. And then like, you don't know how that's going to affect the polls. Not that we have that much time left. Not that we have really any time left. Lots of people have already voted, which is awesome. But still, like, you never know what a change of energy can do in the last 2 weeks before the election. And
which is why we're going to put a quick plug in for anyone that watches this before the 17th, October 17th, on the A More Perfect Podcast channel. We are doing a world premiere release of something that was something that has been turned into hopefully an anthem for Kamala Harris, and we're premiering it now. The person who wrote it has written for people like Barbra Streisand, et cetera, et cetera. You won't want to miss it. October 17th on this channel, 9:30 p.m. Make sure you're there. The last story that we're going to quick talk about before we end. Trump was just in Coachella, because what better place for someone who's trying to win the presidency than go to a state that he will never win. This is not the first state that he's gone to rally that he will not win. He has rallied in New York once, and I guess he's going back to Madison Square Garden again. He's been in Colorado. He's not going to win any of those states, but he's spending his time there for whatever reason.
If he can, convince a bunch of people that he could win those states, then who knows what they'll do when he loses them.
Yeah, I guess. So the reason we wanted to bring it up is, so this was happening, and the thousand, however many thousand, there's, I don't know the exact number, but there was a lot of people, hundreds, maybe 1,000 people, whatever.
Millions if you ask Trump.
Millions if you ask him, yeah. But they were told to park at a parking lot that was 5 to 6 miles away from the event. And people were there, people were coming in for hours. And they were busing them to the event. But something happened at the end. So surprisingly, or shouldn't be any surprise to anyone, Trump is cheap. And his campaign only paid for one bus for thousands of people. So what happened after the rally, there was one bus to bring thousands of people that had been brought from the parking lot over the entire day, like 8 hours. So they literally were waiting there, not knowing when they were going to get back to their car. There's videos of people just in pitch black, just going, look at all of these people. And there's one bus for everyone. And even if they started walking, it would be like it would be like an hour and a half to 2 hour walk.
No food, no water. Yeah. The first instinct, obviously, my first instinct is compassion and empathy. And I genuinely do not think those people deserved that, because it's crazy. That is a crazy
No.
thing to have happened. However,
Absolutely.
it's kind of one of those situations. It's like you hung out in the cage with the lion, and then the lion ate your face. And
So
doesn't
here's the
mean
question that I
deserved
have
it.
for you, though.
They thought the lion was domesticated.
Here's the question I have for you, though.
Okay.
Do you think anyone had their eyes opened after this? I mean, it's California, so it's not going to matter anyways. But do you think anybody had their eyes opened?
Maybe.
Or is that just
I'm
a dream?
trying to put myself in their
Is that
shoes.
Is that just a dream? But see, can we? Because you and I are rational human beings. And
I'd like to
rational
think
human
so.
beings hear people lying through their teeth and go, I'm not going to support that.
Well, that's I don't think it's going to change anyone's. The man has. We know what he's done. Like, who? They don't care. They do not care, and
You're
they
right.
won't. Will they will continue not to care.
You're right.
So.
What can I say? I'm a dreamer.
But maybe some people were like, they had just that day heard like really horrible things that they had never heard about him before, and then that happened, and they're like, literally, fuck this guy. Who knows?
Except for the fact that it's California, and
maybe somebody saw it on the news.
Maybe. I don't see many people talking about the Coachella thing. It's mostly been on TikTok where I've seen that discussed. Which,
speaking of kind of same-ish realm of topic, and I made a TikTok about this, but Charlie Kirk had posted a thing on X talking about how they were at Oregon State, and like a bunch that he was like, oh, look at this blue state, but look how many like red like students there are, look how many Trump supporters there are here in this super blue state, this blue school, and whatever. I don't care what Charlie Kirk says, but somebody in the comments was like, I go to OSU, and half of us were there. We had like bingo cards for stuff that we thought he was gonna say. We were like there making fun of him, which, listen, very anecdotal and literally came from a TikTok comment section, but it was kind of nice to hear. I was like, because there's no way, honestly,
it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me.
The man is absurd. So you'd hope that most college students people paying for an education would agree that Charlie Kirk, the person who says that it's crazy to go to pay for an education, whatever. Anyways, what were you saying?
Yep. Here's the thing that we all need to remind ourselves. Every state, we're talking red or blue states, not the swing states. Every state has a minimum of probably about 20% of that state that supports the opposite party. Even California, in the 2020 election, 25% of the votes went to Donald Trump in California. And so getting 1,000 people to a rally when 25% of a state supports them is not impossible.
Yeah. Something I think about a lot, something that's helped me with my anxiety regarding of so many people in this country being clinically insane, sorry, but it's true, is my friend always says this to me. She's like, Eden, half of the people in this country are below average, and that is a crazy amount of people. If you take the bottom half and then you cut that in half, 25% of people is so many millions of people. 10% of people is so many millions of people, and they're crazy. They are crazy, and they are very loud, but they are still only 10% of the people. And there's more of us who aren't crazy, and that's what's important.
The thing that we will never know is there's a lot of people that like to think they know how the demographic changed in 4 years between 2020 and 2024. We had a pandemic. We know that one particular party suffered more from the pandemic than the other party. We know that a higher percentage of Gen Z tends to lean progressive, and we have had 4 years of Gen Zs being able to vote, and we know that a higher percentage of people that passed away tend to be at least lean red.
Yeah.
We don't know how that could have helped or hurt. Some of it will depend on what percentage of people get out and vote for any party. There are a lot of people that don't like Trump that are considering not voting at all.
This is the one election
that could change things.
Go for it. If you were going to vote for Trump but you just don't want to vote, bless. Just don't.
I want to make a public service announcement that A More Perfect podcast does not endorse not getting out to vote. That is Eden's personal perspective, not the podcast's.
Actually, no, it's not Eden's personal perspective either, because that'd be a crazy thing to say considering what I am doing as a job right now. I will say
that's true.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing people I'm registering people at college campuses, and they know that they're from a swing county, and they're like, no, I'm not registering here. I need to get my mail in from my swing county. I'm like, oh my God, yes, you do.
Nice.
It's really cool.
Let's go.
Because I think about those people all the time, and then I see them in real life, and I'm like, you are the change. You will be the change.
Gen Z smart. Gen Z smart.
I hope we're smart enough. According to Kamala, we're dumb. Remember? So.
Well, there's a lot of dumb people out there. I don't think they need to be Gen Z, but
you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's all we've got for today.
Yeah.
You want any last words?
Stay okay, everybody.
Stay okay.
Stay okay.
Stay okay. Get out and vote. Early vote if you can. Register if you still can. Some places do live. You can still register to vote up to and through election day. Know who's on your ballot. Vote up and down. State and local are just as important as presidential.
Yeah. We should say, even if you don't want to vote for a presidential candidate this year, you can still vote down ballot. You can still vote down ballot.
You can leave a blank.
Those elections matter so much. So if you're so discouraged and you are genuinely...
Leave the presidential one blank if you really feel that you can't do it.
Yeah.
But don't not vote. Because
that would be
if you
crazy.
don't vote and then complain about everything that's going on in this world, consider yourself a part of the problem, because the only way to fix it is by voting. Okay,
yeah.
I want to say again, if you watch this October 17th, 9:30 p.m. on this channel, simulcasting YouTube and TikTok, come and watch this amazing song called We the People, written by one of the most well-known, if not famous, lyricists of the 20th century. You are not going to want to miss it. It's fully in support of the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris to become the 47th president of the United States. Thank you all for watching this episode of A More Perfect Podcast. We will see you the next time that we see you. Bye, guys.
Yay.